Your response. I'm going to tell you about an officer-involved shooting tonight that occurred. It involves a 13-year-old suspect. A 13-year-old suspect. The information that I'm going to give you obviously is what we know now. It may change as the day goes on and the investigation goes on. The investigation, the sheriff's going to talk about the investigative part of it. I'm going to give you the information as it relates to the Lakeland Police Department. But just keep in mind this may change and probably will over the next several days. At about 5:16 this afternoon, Lakeland police officers started receiving phone calls of a shooting that occurred in the area of Simpson Park, which is just a little bit to my north here. An officer was in the area. He was investigating another call unrelated to the shooting. There was a description of a vehicle that got put out. It was a white Dodge Avenger that was possibly involved. Officer Jamie Smith, and he spells his first name Jamie Smith, who's been with us for a little bit less than 2 years, saw the vehicle, got behind the vehicle, attempted to stop the vehicle. The vehicle fled from him. There was a short pursuit. It ended here on 10th Street, where the three occupants of the vehicle got out of the vehicle and fled on foot. One of the occupants was obviously carrying a handgun, running down the sidewalk, carrying a handgun. Officer Smith saw that. He got out of his vehicle, engaged in a foot pursuit, commanded the young man, the 13-year-old young man, to drop the weapon several times. They rounded the corner. They entered the apartment complex here, which is officially known as the Carrington Place Apartments. As he rounded the corner of the building, the 13-year-old was waiting for him in a crouched position with the handgun aimed towards the officer and fired one round, at least one round. The officer returned fire. The officer was struck one time in the left foot, but he continued the foot chase. After the suspect fired the round, he turned around and continued running. The officer, even though he was struck in the foot and shot, on the radio gave the instructions out that he was shot, but he was continuing the pursuit and gave the identifying information. He rounded the corner. He actually did a reload as he was running. He dropped a magazine, inserted another magazine, rounded the corner, and began to look for the suspect. This is an apartment complex, and it's about 5:15, 5:25 in the afternoon. You can imagine kids are out. It's not 3 o'clock in the morning where everyone's at home in bed and sleep. So as he rounded the corner, he lost sight of the suspect. He didn't know where he was. He's asking people, where did he go, where did he go? There's other officers that hear the call of shots fired that are arriving into the area. As they arrive into the area, he walks past a large set of bushes that are close up to one of the buildings. He doesn't see him. He turns around. As he turns around, this gentleman, the 13-year-old, jumps out of the bushes and begins to flee away, and they engage in another gun battle there. At the second gun battle, the 13-year-old is struck several times, goes down. The officers immediately render first aid to him, and he is ultimately transported to Tampa General Hospital, where he was being treated. The officers arrive with the officer that was shot, Officer Smith. They give him first aid, actually put him in the back of a police car, and drove him to Lakeland Regional Medical, where he is being treated right now for his injuries. He has one gunshot in the left foot, as I said. He's expected to be treated and probably released within the next several days. The 13-year-old, and I will identify him for you. His name is Wesley Dalmas, Dalmas. His date of birth is 9/19 of 2009. He's 13 years old. He's 13 years old. Unbelievable. What are we doing? A 13-year-old that has an arrest history. I'm going to let the sheriff talk about that. That has an arrest history and also has the fortitude and the anger inside of him to turn around and point a handgun at a police officer, and not only point that handgun, but take a shot at a police officer. 13 years old. We'll as I said, the information will change and probably will as the days goes on. I'll let the sheriff talk about the investigative part and the follow-up that's going on right now, but that's what we know from the Lakeland Police Department's perspective right now. So, Sheriff?
till we finish.
Just let the sheriff go, and then we'll finish that. Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, first question is, why is the sheriff here? We have a professional police department in the middle of the city. Here's why we're here. We're the lead agency in the investigation because State Attorney Brian Haas, who we believe is just the very best, said, hey, we need an incident task force so that the lead is someone other than the agency that shoots. So for example, the Lakeland Police Department will be the lead in a shooting that we have. We have 4 different teams. Team number 1 is deployed tonight. It's made up of the Sheriff's Office, Auburndale Police Department, Lakeland Police Department, and Haines City Police Department. We started the investigation into the shooting. You heard the event. It was a remarkable response by the Lakeland police officers. Officer Smith heard the gunshots as there was a drive-by shooting near Simpson Park. Did you hear what I said? Simpson Park, where children ostensibly play in the afternoon. He immediately went there to save lives. Our investigation reveals that, as the chief said, there was a short pursuit. Our detectives are combing through the footage right now, but what we see is when the 3 people jumped from the car and ran from Officer Smith after the pursuit, one of them clearly had a firearm. It happened to be Wesley Dalmas. Wesley ran. The officer risked his life and pursued the person that he saw with the firearm so that he could take this person into custody before he shot at anyone else. Little did the officer know that as soon as he chased the suspect ran around the corner of the building. As the officer ran around the corner of the building, our suspect Wesley turned and shot the Lakeland police officer. Because of the grace of God, the officer was only struck in the foot, but it was a remarkable police response by him. He continued the pursuit despite being shot because he recognized the need to take this felon into custody. Our investigation also shows at this early stage that as the officer rounded the second corner, he lost him. And you can see him looking. And as he walks past a huge bush, as the chief said, and he looks back, and there he is. And that's when the officer engages him again. Wesley Dalmas is shot by the Lakeland police officers after he shot the police officer, and while he's still in possession of the firearm. Now, it's interesting to point out that this officer once again risked his life to keep this community safe. And that's what police officers do every day. So the investigation goes on. So I have an intel team working with the Lakeland police detectives, and I have an investigative team working with the police detectives, and we go, who is Wesley Dalmas that at 13 years old engages a police officer in a gunfight? Who is this person? Well, guess what we discovered? On January 1st of this year, another law enforcement officer risked his life to take another firearm off of Wesley Dalmas. That's right, one of my deputies responded to burglaries of a conveyance or of a vehicle. Our deputies had a quick response. The 911 call was placed by the victim, and we caught Wesley Dalmas with a stolen gun out of the victim's car. We arrested him. He was charged with a litany of felonies, and he was given probation. Did he appreciate the probation? No. Today, just a few months later, he has another firearm that I will bet you is stolen. Obviously, he can't buy one. He can't possess one legally because of his age. But I'll bet you when our investigation is completed, we'll find that one is stolen as well. And at 13 years of age, he decides that he'll have a shootout an attempt to murder a Lakeland police officer. The investigation's ongoing. We release information early. You heard the chief say it. Overnight, we're going to release a snippet. Now keep in mind the detectives haven't even seen the camera footage. There's camera footage on the building. There's also body camera footage and car camera footage. We've got to analyze all of that, but we're going to release a snippet that clearly shows Wesley spin and shoot the police officer. You won't be able to see the police officer because he's on the back side of the building, but you will see Wesley shoot at the Lakeland police officer in that clip that'll be released overnight. So the investigation goes on by the task force. Representatives from the state attorney's office are here tonight. The investigators from the state attorneys as well as attorneys. There'll be a complete and thorough investigation. We'll do the lead on the criminal investigation. That will go to the state attorney. They will do an independent investigation. The police department will do an investigation. They'll also do an administrative investigation. So there's going to be at least 4 investigations because that's standard protocol in all of these events. But I applaud the chief and the professionalism of the police department tonight. That law enforcement officer risked his life tonight to make sure this community is safe. Any questions?
The lower extremities, the latest information we have is non-life threatening. So last we heard that he was going to be treated and released, actually. So they were not serious injuries.
What about the other?
We're working on that right now. There is some indication that is exactly either a gang member or an associate. That's probably going to be the case. Yes.
Have you confirmed the shot was fired over by the park side?
Over by the park.
Was there any rounds that were covered?
That's part of the investigation. We're still working on that. Yeah. We got phone calls saying that was the case, and that's what attracted us to the area.
You said 3 occupants in the car, sir.
Yes.
Were they other juveniles? Were they apprehended as well?
We do have all 3 identified, and 2 of the 3, and possibly by the time we walk down here, the 3rd one is in custody. Yes.
Were they other juveniles?
One is an adult. I don't know about the 3rd one. I'm not sure about the 3rd one, but at least one of them is an adult.
You heard the sheriff basically say how your officer risked his life. So what do you want to say to this officer down the road recover? I mean, he never let you go run. So what do you want to say to the officer?
Yeah, the sheriff is exactly right. He performed heroically tonight. He performed exactly as we train all the Lakeland Police Department, as the sheriff trains his deputies, as every law enforcement agency in this county trains their officers to respond. He very easily could have, after he was shot, pulled back, set up a perimeter. Who knows what would have happened? Maybe he goes into someone's house, he takes the hostage, we don't know. But because he kept the pressure on and was not willing to, he stayed in the fight, he was able to keep the pressure on and get this guy to lay down. We were able to bring it to a successful conclusion. So he performed heroically tonight.
Wesley had no regard for life. They went to the area of Simpson Park to shoot up another house or another car or another person, a rival. Our information tells us that they are at least gang affiliates and maybe certified gang members or some part of this group. But they all got in a mama's car that was borrowed from mama. She, of course, doesn't know what's going on, and go up to the park to shoot up someone and in fact shot. That's what caused the 911 calls. He has no regard for life. None. Zero. Now I can tell you right now, we're going to request the state attorney to file adult charges on this man. He may be 13 years chronologically, but he's a hardened criminal willing to shoot it out with cops, and we're going to do our very best to send him to prison for a very long time. He's proven twice in less than 5 months to be dangerous. Once our deputies risked their life to take a stolen gun from him in the middle of a felonious act of burglary, and then the Lakeland police officer was shot tonight trying to get him in custody again. We don't want him on the streets. It's just a matter of time until he hits someone, and just by the grace of God, he didn't hit anybody with their drive-by this afternoon. But this is serious business. He entered into adult criminal activity, and we're going to treat him like an adult doing violent, felonious criminal activity.
Sheriff, what other charges to others? What message do you hope that sends to other people that age, young people, other 13-year-olds?
The message we have, there's room in the jail for all of you who want to shoot. We're going to keep putting you in there and sending you to prison.
Sheriff, what other juvenile charges does he have?
He amassed 4 or 5 felonies, aggravated assault. He actually assaulted the owner of the car with a firearm the night that he broke in, and he trespassed, and he carried a concealed firearm when our deputies. So he had 4 or 5 felonies that he amassed in January when we took the gun from him. He is a very dangerous, hardened criminal. I don't care what his chronological age is. And when you shoot at a police officer, you bought yourself a long time in state prison as soon as we convict him.
Sheriff, would you say that the body cam video and the car video helped you in this investigation?
This investigation could have been solved by Helen Keller without any video. We had a police officer right there that saw it all. We had backup officers that saw it all, that also engaged in the firefight. You know, this is a slam dunk case by any stretch of the imagination. With cameras, without cameras, with your eyes closed or your eyes open.
Sheriff, did you say more than one officer fired?
There was a second officer that arrived just as the guy ran from behind the bushes, gun in hand, after being discovered by Officer Smith.
With that, you said there were 3 individuals in the car. If I heard you correctly, you have 2 in custody at the moment?
We have 2 in custody. We're searching for the third one. He is identified as well.
With the third one, is there any concern he could be harmed?
Yes, there is. As a matter of fact, we have witness information that tells us at least 2 of the 3 were armed with firearms. In the videos, we didn't see the firearm in the other person's hand, and we don't know about the third person. So, did he have the gun in his waist when he jumped and ran? Is it in the car? We don't know. That's part of the investigation, as the chief said. We release information to you early, and all of this will be modified as we get more details, and the chief will be back in contact with you, or I will, as the investigation goes on. Probably we both will.
Sir, you mentioned the juvenile 13-year-old had a firearm. Can you elaborate on what type of firearm he had?
It was a 9mm semi-automatic, and I highly suspect that it's stolen.
Has anything been found in the car?
It's too early. We're obtaining search warrants to search the vehicle for obvious reasons, and the investigative team will do that throughout the evening.
I'm sorry if I missed this, but have you said what the suspect will be charged with? Is it clear yet?
Well, he's going to be charged with a litany of charges to include attempted murder of the Lakeland police officer.
That third person still on the run, do we know if that's an adult or if it's a juvenile?
It's under investigation. Quite frankly, they have him identified, and they told us just before we walked out, we've identified the third one, but I didn't ask. I don't know.
Yeah.
Chief didn't ask how old is he. It doesn't make any difference to us how old you are. If you're old enough to hold a gun and point it at a cop, you're old enough to be shot and put in prison for a long time, and that's what's happening here tonight. He's going to prison for a long time.
Is that what the helicopters are up here about?
The helicopters were there working perimeter, yes. Okay?
Chief, what was the name of the other officer?
Officer Jano, Jano, Joseph Jano, I believe it. Joseph Jano.
And
I spoke with both of them. I visited them at the hospital, and I spoke with Officer Jano. They're in good spirits. Officer Smith's family's with him, and he's going to be kept overnight. Probably be released. The doctors thought maybe tomorrow, possibly. So, all right.
Thank you very much.
All
Good
right.
night.
Thank y'all.